All right. So I don't believe that everybody gets their pictures or their faces recorded when it's being recorded live. I think we're just going to start out with what I'm sharing. Don't quote me though. I don't even know if y'all can see me. Um, so thank you everybody for joining us tonight on this wonderful Tuesday night. I think today is the 25th. Yes, for Hispanic Hackers. Tonight we're going to be doing a learn to code in for Python. Um, so thanks for joining us tonight. If anybody is new tonight, feel free to fill out one of our surveys. We have it in English and we have it in Spanish. Um, it's really just so that we can provide the best possible content for you, for our members. It just asks general questions like what languages do you code in? What are you interested in taking part in? Stuff like that, so that way we can have the best possible experience for everybody. So like I said, today's event is going to be recorded, and what I'll do is it'll be uploaded to YouTube later, and then we also upload it to our website, which Tim shared with us last week. We have a website that's dedicated to Hispanic hackers, and then it also has each of our past events. It has all of the slide deck and the recording and just any information that's about it, or and also the chat. So if you have anything you want to share in the chat, it'll or you and you forget to take a download of it, well, we'll have that on our website as well for you. Tim shared in the chat already, guys. Also the links to our surveys. He's also dropped a link to our website in the chat, so feel free to click on it, check it out, explore it. If you have any questions, let us know. We also make use of a tool called Slido. So it's this link down here below. And we use that for anonymous questions. So if you don't want us to see who you are asking questions, that's the way to do it. Grab that link, let us know. And then it's an anonymous ask. So that way we can answer the questions for you. And Tim watches that for us so that way we know whatever's coming in. All right. All right, so before we get started, we want to make sure we thank Capital Factory. They are our sponsor for the evening, and for the year, they've been our sponsor. They help us out with, right now during this time of the pandemic, they help us out with the Zoom account that we use and take advantage of to have our events at. During normal times, we typically have our events at the Capital Factory. And we're planning to do that again coming up pretty soon. Once it becomes a little bit more easier to get out and get people to just be in places. So we'll start planning maybe in June to have our events hybrid or in person, and then still just have some sort of a video recording if we can. Probably do it similarly through Zoom, just like this, and we'll be able to share it or live stream it, probably to YouTube, I think, and we'll figure something out so we make sure everybody's included and able to have fun and join us. So today's talk, guys, is going to be by Tim. I love his picture. He did awesome, kind of cartoonish. But it's going to be the introduction to Python. It's going to also have a Q&A session. And then he has some coding challenges that we might break off into some groups in and maybe take 15 minutes to try to answer some questions and see if we learn something. Today's event topics are going to include things on dealing with Python and the syntax. What are some good reasons to learn Python? How to actually run Python. The different things like strings and classes and functions that we all deal with in our other coding languages that we work with. And then he'll have some resources as well that you can take advantage of if you have questions, if you want to learn more. All right. Also, so about us, for people that are new and don't know who we are Hispanic Hackers. We're the Austin chapter of Hispanic Hackers. Right now, we're working on trying to move across the United States and become a nonprofit organization, or whatever we need to do to be able to spread out and touch more people and be in other cities and just help more people out. So we're a group of Hispanic individuals um, sorry, that are mostly software and hardware engineers. It's this Hispanic ethnicity. Uh, the point of it is we try to showcase our knowledge and experiences to build a professional network for ourselves and for our community. If you're not Hispanic, it's perfectly fine. We are a group of people that we just want to help that person in the back of the classroom that doesn't know anybody. That person that's new to town. That's our goal, is to be inclusive and to invite people in and just be that welcoming person for the new person in town. So our organizers are myself, James Lockwood, Eddie Reyes, Laura Evans, and Timothy Wang. Um, so that's our board. The goals of our group are really to advance the knowledge of technology and space. We do monthly meetings that are related to different topics, like as far as software, hardware. We haven't done any hardware things lately, but it doesn't mean we're not interested in doing them. If anybody knows anybody that would like to talk about hardware things, IoT stuff, we're absolutely game for that. That'd be great. We do focus on developing career opportunities for our members. Next month, we're going to be doing something with, I believe, resumes. I have it down further down the list. We'll go over that some more. We do whiteboarding interview practices. The goal is really just to kind of create the community uh, of Hispanic individuals in tech and just facilitate a place for people to network and make friends. At the end of the day, we're just trying to, I guess, be a group of people that is inclusive and friendly, and just get to know people, make friends, and have fun. So if anybody wants to get involved, that's definitely available. Reach out to any one of us. You can find us. You can reach out to us here on our Zoom channel. You can find us on Slack. You can get to us on Meetup, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the places. You can find us there. Let us know. We're looking for anybody that would like to, help out with leadership, anything like marketing skills, coding skills, anybody looking to kind of, I guess, broaden their resume, or, help out with other people, if you're good at, certain tasks or whatever, and you want to help other people to get better at those things, come on in. We want to, our end goal is really just to help other people get better at coding and be able to, work on their networking skills and eventually, find a good job. That's really fun, and have a good time doing it. That's also important. So feel free to reach out to us, let us know. You can also get a hold of us through the Capital Factory as well. All right. So before we get started, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're going to take a quick screenshot, and what we do with it is we just kind of use it like the way you see on all of our slides. It's all the faces of all the different people that have come to our events this last year, since we've been doing virtual. So let me stop sharing my screen real quick. All right. Anybody that would like to hide their face, this is the time. Anybody that doesn't mind it, we're just gonna take a screenshot, and this is what we do with it. We just use it for adding to our colorful collage of people's faces. All right, ready?
Hold on, James. So we'll do two takes today. One is just kind of smiling of everybody's bright faces. The second one, let's do something fun. Pretend we're all on a roller coaster or something. Throw your hands up, whatever you want to do. And I can count it off. And then James and I will also take a picture, so we both have duplicate copies in case it gets lost. So James, you ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready here too. So when everybody's ready, this is going to be the regular one. Just relax, smiling, happy. So in 3, 2, 1. All right, let's go with some roller coaster. So throw your hands up, whatever you want to do, make funny faces. So in 3, 2, 1. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. All right, back to the regularly scheduled program here. All right, so some social events that we're planning on doing. So as mask mandates are kind of being lifted and people are moving back to a little bit more of normalness, we're trying to do more or push more towards doing some live events. If not, like I said, doing some hybrid events if we need to. We're going to post any social events as they come up uh, on meetup.com, and then also inside of our Slack, just on the general channel. For June, we're planning to do like a brewery hangout maybe for June, and as soon as we get that all the information together for it, we'll share it with everybody. And it'll just be like we can come out and hang out and not code. You can come bring your code if you want to hang out and just do some coding while you're there. Um, just kind of hang out, have fun, just relax, kind of enjoy some of these cool breweries that we have in the area. For July, we're planning to do a pool party at the Capital Factory. They have, I don't know, for those of y'all that don't know, they have a rooftop pool there. So it's not the hugest of pools in the world, but it is a pool, and it's on the 20th floor, so it's kind of cool. We're planning on doing that. In August, we're planning on doing a like a scooter crawl in the downtown area, and what we're planning on doing is having like a some tours of different of the different companies in the area, the downtown area. We're probably gonna do like a Capital Factory tour for a co-working area, probably like a galvanized tour for another co-working area, and then maybe a couple other companies in the downtown area, maybe like Atlassian or like Google or something like that, just to kind of explore the different places around downtown and just get out and see each other and hang out and stuff. Okay. Right now, we're also working on building some stickers and some T-shirts. So if anybody's interested in that, let us know. They are not done yet, but they are in production. Feel free to follow us on all of our social medias. We gather, we get connected, get to know your members, and as we get to do more things in person, we're going to try to take a lot more pictures and videos and just share it. Our goal is just to be out there and have fun. All right. So for our next event, it's going to be a resume and interview workshop, where it's going to be June 22nd from 7 to 9, possibly in hybrid, maybe in person. We're talking to a few people who we worked with in the past to do to help us out with it. We've worked with Let's Eat Grandma. We've worked with Data.world and a couple other places. Also, if anybody knows anyone that like hiring managers that'd be interested in helping out, please reach out to us. Let us know. The end goal is really just to help everybody to better their resume, better their LinkedIn, and be able to find work and just be productive. Uh, Feel free to RSVP as early as you want. It's already up on meetup.com already. You can also find our meetup.com on our QR code. All right.
Quick question, James. I don't know. Is this workshop going to be technical interviews too, or only, or not including?
So right now we think it's going to probably be more of a just a non-technical interview, more like the other type of question. I can't remember what it's called right now. The non-technical questions. So
just like getting to know you, if you're a right fit culture,
yeah,
and like all that sort of stuff.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What we'll do is we'll probably put a few sample questions out on the Slack, and then also in the meetup page. So that way, behavioral, that's the word I was looking for. We'll put some sample questions out there so no one is completely alarmed, and make it as easy as possible for everybody to join in. But yeah, that's going to be the game plan for next month. Laura is going to be, who's not here today, she's going to be taking charge on that event. But like I said, any other recruiters or hiring managers that would be interested in helping out, please let us know. The more the merrier. It's just going to give you give our people a better chance at being where they need to be at. All right. Like I was saying, how to find
another event. I just want to call out, we do have another event where we do the coding interviews, if you're interested.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
stay tuned for that.
We do have a dedicated whiteboarding event. I think that's coming up in July. Don't quote me. But we do it like every 4 months. We do one of those. Every 3 to 4 months we do one of those But it's always good to be prepared for that interview and being ready for it. So how to find us, guys? Like I said, Hispanic Hackers next.vertical.app. You find us on our Slack. You can find us in Meetup, LinkedIn, Facebook, and at the Capital Factory. Anytime throughout the tonight, you can also get us with our QR codes down here on the bottom. And then right now is a brief time for everybody, anybody in the audience that has any announcements, any upcoming events. Does anybody have any events coming up? I know we were shouted out on Austin Code Mentors yesterday, right? One of the people there, one of the people in charge there. Is there anybody in other groups that have events coming up that would like to share them with the group? No? All right. Is there anybody out there, job seekers looking for work right now?
Yeah.
Alright. What are you looking for, Joe?
It'd be cool to do front end. My last job was back end, and I think I like burned out on that, and I was happiest in the past. So like, React or Svelte or just native HTML, like JavaScript, TypeScript, that sort of thing.
Okay. Anybody else looking for work right now, guys? No. All right. Is there anybody hiring right now? Anybody have open positions at their job that they want to introduce anybody to?
I think we're hiring. I work for Aristocrat. We're over at the domain. But we're in the, I don't know if anybody here, this is the first time I've joined you guys. So I apologize for my ignorance. Yeah, we're looking for some developers. Joe, it's kind of sounds like you might be interested in one of the positions out there, but I haven't looked at the positions lately. So if any of you guys are interested in any of those positions, feel free to send me your resume, and I can pass it on to the right people.
Cool.
I can post my if it's okay, James, I can post my email.
Yeah, feel free to share it in the chat. Feel free, if you're on our Slack, to share it in our chat on Slack. If you want to put your career page from your company website, feel free to drop it in too. Yeah, this is the best time for it.
And we're a company. We're into we're land-based gaming. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. We're land-based. We're in land-based casinos, but we also do digital stuff. So if you want to play online with your laptop or with a mobile device, I happen to be on the digital side. Yeah, you guys take a look. The corporate office in the United States is in Vegas. Surprise, surprise. The global headquarters is in Australia. It's an awesome company, man. If any of you guys get to work for us, you're gonna love the company. We have right now on our team, on Fridays, we get off by 1 o'clock. We have these events like on Wednesdays where we do, they do sessions, with all this COVID thing, right? You get to do like 30 minutes of exercise or, for those that are interested in yoga or Pilates or stuff like that, they cut some time out of your work day for stuff like that.
Awesome. That's exciting. That sounds like a lot of fun. Thank you, Martin.
Yeah.
So if anybody's looking for work, Martin has open places at his company, guys.
Hey, Martin, I have a quick question for you, James, if you don't mind. So I'm kind of new to my software development journey. I've actually been studying JavaScript pretty hard, but I'm an old school network engineer. Do you think you guys would be looking for any network engineers with a lot of experience?
Yes, well, I don't know that we are, but I know that we do have positions here in the Austin office, and we're located at the Domain. If you know where Whole Foods is at the Domain, we're right across the street from there.
Okay. Yeah, I may pop in and just pay a visit someday.
Yeah, please do. I encourage all of y'all, whoever's interested.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right. Anybody else hiring right now, guys? Guys and ladies? No? All right.
Yeah.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
work at Facebook, and Facebook's always hiring for folks. The guy said he does the network engineering. What I do at Facebook, I'm a production engineer, and that kind of knowledge is could come in very handy. So if you're interested, reach out to me. I'm going to put my LinkedIn on the chat, and I can chat with you about the interview process and preparing for it. And if you're interested in it, I'll refer you.
Awesome. Thanks, Eddie. That's fantastic. Yeah, we'll hook up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is anybody else hiring one last time? No? All right.
Actually,
go
real quick,
ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, James. At Austin Code Mentors, there's somebody that will help you get a referral. I don't know exactly the process, but she announced there's positions at Whole Foods for front end, back end, DevOps, all sorts of stuff. So if you're not familiar with Austin Code Mentors, James mentioned it earlier. It's a good resource as well. So that's it.
Yeah. Absolutely. They're a good resource. I try to keep up with them, but they're really, really, really active on their Slack. So sometimes it's hard to catch up, but they have a lot of good information on that they share and stuff also. So yeah, definitely reach out to them. Join their group. Also, if you're not already, there's another great organization to be a part of. All right. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. So moving on. The presentation. Okay. So Tim, I think there was something you wanted to share beforehand, right?
Yeah, just a few quick words before you get the video started. And I don't know if this is what you were referring to, but I'm going to post the slides and the GitHub repo here in the chat, so you guys can click on the resources during the presentation if you wanted to. And then this presentation will it's already pre-recorded, and I wanted to try this format because I saw it in one of the summits that I've been to before, and it allows me time to sit here with you and answer questions and just interact with you. Just something new that we want to try, so that we can possibly do it for other events in the future, and have it lined up, ready for it to go. Other than that, I think that's all I have to say. Do you have anything else, James?
No, I'm excited. Do you want me to play it, or do you want to play it?
I think it's better if you play, because I'm going to be watching the feed here. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. I'm going to go ahead and hit play
Thanks.
then. Is it loud? Can y'all hear it okay?
Hello, everyone. My
It's
name
good
is
for me.
Tim, and I'm going to be giving a presentation today on Python. This is actually an updated version of a presentation I did back in November of last year with Shipped. I've updated some slides and added the OOP concepts section, just if you're curious. And since this is pre-recorded, please feel free to ask questions during the presentation, as I will be here and I'll help you answer your questions as best as I can. And so yeah, I'm excited to be here, and let's go ahead and dive right in. So we're doing Learn to Code with Python with Austin Hispanic Hackers. And I'd like to go over the presentation layout so you know what to expect. Don't worry about writing anything down unless you want to, but the slides, the GitHub repo, and also the YouTube link will be provided. and I'll go ahead and show you how to get access to those at the end as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself so you know who I am, and then we'll go over the origin of Python and show you a little bit of the syntax, and then we'll dive into why you should learn Python and how it compares to other languages. And then we'll run Python here on my computer, and we're going to use the terminal as well as the IDE called Komodo. And then we're going to jump more into the syntax in specifically Python strings, functions, the classes, and then finally the OOP concepts. And then to finish up, we're going to cover some resources that you can use and that I think would be helpful for you. And I'll give you some action steps if you want to start your Python journey right away. And then finally, we'll close it out for any other questions we have and whatever other activities we have planned for this evening. So I am currently a web applications developer here in Austin, Texas. And previously I worked as a pharmacist for about 2.5 years. And I decided to switch careers and attend Lambda coding school for about 7 months. And then in my spare time, I like to learn about coding and play around with cryptocurrency. And then also I love to travel. Here are some of the pictures of the places I've been before, and each and every one of them I had a great time. Bonus points if you can pick out all the places on this slide. And then just a little bit of formatting. If you notice the exclamation point at the end of traveling, that is actually a hot link. So throughout the presentation, there's going to be a lot of underlined text, and then that's how you'll know that it's a useful resources that you can use. So if you want to know where I'd like to travel to next, you'll have to download this presentation and click on that exclamation point just to incentivize you. So what is Python? Python is an object-oriented back-end language. It's a simple language that you can use to build up applications very quickly compared to some of the other older languages that are C-based. It was released back in '91 by the gentleman here at the bottom, Guido van Rossum, and he actually got the name from Monty Python's Flying Circus. And the most recent version we have is Python 3, even though Python 2 is still around, but the support ended back in January 1st, 2020. So hopefully you should be migrating over to Python 3 by now. On the middle picture here, you can see some of the Python syntax. It reads very much like English, and that's why most people like to start with this language or perhaps JavaScript. And then on the far right is just kind of like an introduction slide that I found that I thought was nice. Tells you what you can use it for, and shows you that companies like Google, Pinterest, Spotify, and Dropbox use this, and then also some of the frameworks that Python can be built around. So what is Python syntax? Python is it reads like English, so it looks very simple compared to other languages. It uses lines and indentation, whereas other languages also have that, but then also tend to use more characters like semicolons and parentheses. So it's also a language focused on objects and classes. So inside of that, you have also members and the methods. And then it's also considered a partial OOP language. It's not like the real OOP language like C or C#, C++, that sort of thing. But it does support concepts like abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance, and encapsulation. And then if you'd like to improve the style of your Python code, there's something called the PEP 8 style guidelines. And it is underlined, so you can go ahead and click that link there. And of course, the language is Python. It's going to use snake case typing. That's going to be this second bullet on the top picture here. So that just has that underscore on the bottom. And then on the bottom three pictures, you'll see the syntax of three languages. So Python on the left, JavaScript in the middle, and then C# on the right. And you'll see that in JavaScript, for example, it tends to use more parentheses. It has semicolons. And then C# is also very similar, even though maybe the brackets are a little bit lined up a little bit differently. So why should you learn Python? I think the biggest thing is that you can build apps very quickly. It's a very simple language, as you can see from the syntax. It's very readable. Even instead of console log, for example, in JavaScript, it will use like print. So makes it very easy to interpret. And then it's easy to learn, right? One way you can check this is if you use the command import this in the Python terminal, it will spit back out something called the Zen of Python. This was how the language was built. So some of the tenets was to basically make this language very accessible to a lot of people. It's a language that has batteries included, meaning it's a whole framework that has everything that you might need, and then also has some extensibility if you decide to bring in other things. And the way it does this is it has a very large standard library, so you can just bring in things as you need. And then you can always download modules, and these are things that are code that other people have written that you can bring into your own project as well. It's also a very trusted language because there's a huge community, and there's also a lot of knowledge that has been established since it's been around for a while, and also open source. So a lot of people like this language because it's very friendly and very trusted, easy to get into. It's used in many things. We have web development, using data analysis, and also using the scientific community to do computations and some other purposes here. It also works on Windows, Mac, Linux, and also Raspberry Pi. And then it supports many coding paradigms. We have the procedural, object-oriented, or functional. Don't worry too much about that. You can develop your paradigms later once you are more familiar with the language. And two of the most popular frameworks with Python is Django and Flask. So Django is going to be the more opinionated. It's going to be the more complete package if you want to build something. Flask is the more lightweight cousin where you can bring in that and then other things as you need them. But Django's more loaded, more opinionated. Flask is more lightweight. And then it has garbage collection as a language. I remember when I was learning C back in Lambda school, and I've never had to do garbage collection until then, but I am grateful that the computer does it for me. It's nice when someone takes out the trash for you. Am I wrong? So how does Python compare to other languages? Well, I mentioned earlier that it was one of the more well-known languages that folks like to start with. So Python, JavaScript, or maybe you went to university and they started you with some C-based language. And you should use the language that is best for your use case and that you enjoy using or enjoy learning, or maybe your company is basing their ecosystem on that language. But you can always consider the frameworks and the libraries of these different languages if you don't like the flavor of one, for example. So you can use like Flask or Django as an example. And I listed some of the different uses for the other languages, depending on what industry you might be getting into. I'm no expert, but this is kind of just my outlook and things that I've found when I researched. So web development, I think JavaScript is pretty much king. React, Angular, Vue, and then we have Node on the back end, Electron for the desktop, and then React Native for mobile, for Android and iOS included. If you're doing game development, you can use C++. If you're doing more enterprise applications for big companies, you might want to use Java or C#. If you want a language that's closer to the hardware, you can try a language like C. And then data analysis or machine learning, R, might be better suited for your case. And then if you're trying to get into Google, Golang might be a good option to go towards. I've never had to go to Google, so that's Google, uses Golang, so I figured they probably want people to use it. And then this is a newer one I added. If you're interested in blockchain or cryptocurrency, you might want to pick up Solidity or Plutus. Interestingly, Plutus is based off of Haskell. And then Solidity, I haven't actually looked at it, but I heard that it's more like JavaScript. It's very easy to follow. And so how do you run Python? The latest version I found recently is version 3.9.5. So you can just go to python.org and go ahead and download it for your appropriate operating system. And then we have the IDEs, which is what you can run and edit your code in. Some of the popular ones, there's many. We have Thony, Komodo, and PyCharm. I've used PyCharm in the past, so that was pretty decent. And I tried something new in the previous presentation, Komodo, so I went ahead and stuck with that for this one as well. So you can go there, download it for Windows is what I did. This should actually read 3.9.5. I'll go ahead and update that for you. You can go to the Komodo website, go ahead and download that, register your account, and then when you're setting up Komodo, you might have to set up a debugger. So on the right-hand side here, if you go to Preferences in the Komodo IDE, you can choose the interpreter that you'd like to use. And the one that I picked was python.exe, and that's how it compiles the code and runs it for you. And then you can run the Python terminal inside your terminal. So it's another deeper layer in, right? And then lastly, to get started, there's always really helpful docs and resources. So there's a lot of commands that you can try out here when you're a beginner. So when you open your terminal, there's some things that you can type here. So I'm going to open my terminal, and I'm on Windows, Windows 10, and I've just opened up my command prompt. So I've already installed everything and it's ready to go. So you might have to do a little bit of more finessing. So first up, we have the py command. This is how you get into the py terminal. As you see, I'm on the C drive right now. I'm going to type py, and then you see that it switched over to Python 3.9.1. I'm not sure. Maybe I have to update it to 0.9.5. And then if you remember earlier, we were talking about the Zen of Python, right? So a way you can bring that up. This is just for fun. This is not really mandatory for your coding purposes. So some things that some tenets they try to follow are beautiful is better than ugly, explicit is better than implicit, and simple is better than complex. So just some basic terminal navigation. If you're typing something and you want to go down to a new line, you would hold Shift and hit Enter. Okay. I guess it must have changed since last time. We'll try revisit again later. And then if you want to get out of the py terminal, you can use exit parentheses, and that will kick you back to the regular terminal command line. And if you want to just clear out this window, you've been doing a lot of stuff, it gets messy, there's something called CLS, and that will just clear out the screen for you. And so let's go ahead and try an if-else statement here. We're going to go back into the Python terminal, and then I have a little example for here if you'd like to try to follow. All right, let's try this again. I had my Spanish keyboard on, and I was running into some of the difficulties since I haven't used it in a long time. So in this example, we're going to make a variable that's going to be equal to 5. And then if it's more than or equal to 5, we'll print out one statement. And then if it's less than, we'll print out something else. So in the terminal here, we're in the PyTerminal right now, denoted by those 3 arrows. And we're going to make a variable called sumVar equal to 5. And if you hold shift and push enter, it does go down another line. It seemed like it didn't because it's another 3 arrows, so I got confused. And so if I do it again, it also goes down another line, right? The first case is if sumVar is more than or equal to 5, we want to print out that it's a certain thing. So you can do the tabbing thing here as well, because if you remember, Python is with indentation. So hit a tab, and then we'll type print, and then sumVar is equal or more than 5. Close that up, and then down the next line, and then we'll just do an else, because if it's not more than or equal to 5, it's the anything underneath that. So else, we just want to print less than 5. All right. So if you hit enter, it will go down on another line, but then you have to hit enter again in order to get it to run. And so sumVar is equal or more than 5. Pardon the English syntax, not the greatest, but you get the idea. And then you can try a whole bunch of different things as well. So we can start with an empty list, and the way you can do that is just doing li equals to empty square brackets. That will set up the list for you. And then now you have a list, you can add things, remove things as you wish. So you want to add something, you can use the append command. So you call the variable name for that list, li, you type dot, and then append. And what do we want to append? Maybe just the number 1 to make it simple. And then to actually call the list, you can just type li. You're invoking that variable. And so you see we have 1 inside the list. And then what if you want to know the length of the list now? Maybe you've appended another value here, and then there's something called len, which is short for length. In other languages, it's different things, but in Python, it's just len. And now you can see that the list has a length of 2. And let's say we want to just kick off one of the values there. You can do something called pop, and then we'll take a look inside. It pops off the value on the end, right? And then there's also many other things that you can do, loops, lists and classes and all these sorts of things, but we'll get to that. And then you can also bring in some of the modules here right inside the Python terminal. So if you want to bring in the math module, which has a whole host of things that are useful, you can type import math. That will bring all the different methods that are available in that library for you to use. And then we can go ahead and use it. So maybe you want to use the value of pi because no one has time to type out all the values of pi. And then you see 3.14. Maybe you want to round the number upwards. So you can do something like math.ceil, and we'll do like 1.4. This will round it to the next highest number, which will get, of course, 2. And then a whole host of other commands and things that you can use. I highly recommend checking out this link here called X in Y minutes. It's very syntax based. Not a lot of reading. You just look at the examples and then use them for yourself. I'll go ahead and bring it on the screen here for you to take a look at real quick. And it just very teaches you by example instead of a lot of text. It assumes you have some basic programming knowledge already because it doesn't go into too much explanation, and it just shows you different things. So super useful site. This is how I would get started if I was learning Python and I was already comfortable with some other languages. And then let's go ahead and jump into our first code example. We're going to learn about strings. And so the strings, it can be used to display info or help us with error messages and debugging. And on the right-hand side here, you can see our first file called python_strings. And there's a whole a few lines that I'll go through with you here. And first off, I just like to start with the code itself. So let's look at line number 1. I declared a first name variable and then also the city name variable and the zip code. And you'll also notice that the first 2 are strings. The line number 3, the zip code, is actually a number. And then on line number 5 is when we actually print it out to the screen. And this is actually the old way of how you print things to the screen, because you'll notice that the placeholders are using the curly braces, and then later you have to specify what variable should be used in its place. So you'll see there's three of the curly braces. You'll see 3 variables later. Something interesting to note is that you can't just add numbers to strings. It's not allowed in Python. So you have to use something called dot format. So you look on the top, the red box on the left is not how you should use it. And on the right is how you should use it with the dot format command. And then I don't know if this might throw you off, but if you're new to coding, the /n on line 5 is just basically means a line break. So don't get confused with that. So we already went ahead and looked at the terminal. Let's go ahead and look at the Komodo IDE. And then if you need the GitHub repo, there should be a link at the bottom of this, at the end of this slide deck, and also probably on the meetup itself. So I'm going to bring over my Komodo IDE here. And when you first start, you probably want to make a new file from template. And then you want to start with Python 3. So there's Python and Python 3. And of course, we know that Python 3 is the latest version, and we can load that up and start coding. For our purposes here, I've already have some things that we can use. So we're not going to start from scratch. You don't need to see my fabulous typing skills. I'm just going to give you a soft introduction here on how the IDE is laid out, so you know what's going on. On the top here, you have your basic, close the window and that sort of thing. And then you click this eyeball button. It pops up a whole bunch of different buttons for you. So we got the eyeball. You can toggle the different panes on the IDE. So I can close the left side pane. I can close the bottom one as I'd like, extend, reopen as you'd like. And then a lot of the options that you need will probably be at the top here when you want to run code or when you want to save a file, make a new file. Before, when I was mentioning about the debugger, if you want to access the preference, you just hit these 3 lines or the hamburger menu, and then you go to preferences, or you can hit Control, comma. And if you go into that and then the Python language, Python 3 tab, you can select the interpreter you'd like to use. And I think this is only for setup. I remember I didn't have to do this much later, but just wanted to point you towards that. So I have some files already. In the GitHub repo, you're going to want to look under v2. That's the most updated files, and that's what we're using here in this presentation. And so we're going to look at Python strings. So same example as from the slides, but we're going to actually run the code now and just see how to actually get that to work. So we have the code, we want to get it running. There's a play button here at the top. If you click it with just a left click, it might ask you to set up some things and whatnot, which you've already done. So a quicker way is to actually hold control and then left click on that. And that will just run the code without having to modify anything. There might be a better way. I don't know. I haven't thoroughly explored this IDE, but that's how I've been running code as I was going through it. And so you'll see at the bottom here, we have hello Tim from Austin. My zip code is 78741. Again, the /n is a line break. And that's how strings are basically made. So this is the old format. I'm going to show you the new format to write strings in the next slide. So example 2, we're going to cover functions. Imagine we have this backend that we're trying to communicate with. And so when new people sign up, we want to send them a welcome message, but then on the back end, we also want to send the admins a reminder, perhaps to welcome the new members and also maybe grant them permissions that they didn't have before. And then we're going to store the member name in a variable, and so we can pass it on and use that in other functions. And so in this Python code snippet on the right, you'll see that I have 2 functions defined. And this is on line 2 and line 10. The first one, we're basically taking in 4 different arguments: the person's first, last name, their LinkedIn name, and their favorite programming language. And then when you plug that in, on line 3, it will go ahead and store that name into a variable called full name, and then it will also print out these 3 different messages on lines 4, 5, and 6. And then from that function on line 7, it will spit back out the full name variable. And then on line 10, it's basically the same thing. It takes in an argument, a full name, and then it just prints out a message for you. And then if you imagine this is all happening on the back end, now that we have the full name of the new member, we want to send them a message and we want to run the welcome new member, right? And then store their full name on this new variable called new member email, number 14. And then we run notification, and then it just goes ahead and welcomes them and maybe emails them and that sort of thing. And then one new thing here on this slide is you can use something called f strings or formatted string literals as an easier way to write strings. If you remember before, we had to use those curly brackets in order to use as placeholders. But here you can just use the syntax with f and then double quote, and then inside the quotes you can use curly braces and then the variable name. So a simple example is on line number 10. We have a new argument called full name, and then we want to use that full name in the string, so we just add it right there into the f string. Give you a moment just to look at this slide real quick. All right. And then the next thing we'll cover is classes. Classes are going to be using something called inheritance. It's basically when information such as members and methods, functions are passed down to the child. And we're going to set up a parent class called account. It's going to have the 3 following properties, and then it will have these 2 methods. And so when the child inherits the parent from the parent, it will receive those properties and methods as well. And so we're going to set up a child class called member, and then we're going to use something called pass in order to actually grab all those things from the account parent class. And then we're also going to write its own method inside the member class called pay dues. So this is not from the parent. This is a method right inside the child class. If we take a look at the code on the right, on the top part, you'll see that we have a new class called account, and we're setting up an initializer, like a constructor. And self is usually just, it's a given, just helps help it bind. I'm not sure the technicalities of it. So it also takes in 3 new arguments, first name, last name, and email. And then we go ahead and bind that in the constructor to this class. And then on the lines 9 and lines 13, you'll see it introduce 2 new methods, one called introduce self, and then one called RSVP events. So we've set up this new class, and then you've set up the new account, right? But now we want to be more specific. This account is specifically a member. So a way we can do that is to write a child class or a derived class. And we bring in the parent class by first importing it. And on line number 3, on the bottom part, you'll see that I brought in the account class first before I started to do anything at all. And then starting on line 6, I started setting up the member, and then it's going to take in an account class on line 6 inside the parentheses there. And then you'll see that I use that pass statement. And this basically grabs everything from that account class, and it doesn't modify anything. It keeps it the same, and so that it can be used here in the member class. So we're also going to write a method specifically just for members, because maybe not all accounts need to pay dues, but members do have to pay dues. So we wrote on line number 11, we have a method called pay dues, and then it takes in what method they use to pay, essentially. So let's run through it. We made a new member on line 15. We had a variable, made a new variable called T. We plugged in the necessary arguments. It made this new T account, or the parent class. And then we also want this new member to pay dues. So now on T, you're going to have everything from accounts and then everything from members. So you're freely able to use anything that you want. Say that this new member has to pay fees. We add in the perhaps PayPal is the method they've paid by, and then that's going to print out to the screen. And then on line 21, maybe the member wants to go to an event, and so they want to RSVP on Meetup and that sort of thing. And so they can sign up for the event by just running this command and typing in the method to sign up for the event. I know this is all a very confusing example. Just imagine this as a more advanced application. We're just going through it for you to get the idea of what's going on. And then lastly, perhaps the member is at an event and then they want to introduce themselves. They can go ahead and just run the introduce self method here. And of course, it doesn't take any arguments, because if you look up top on introduce self, top part, line 10, introduce self, it doesn't take any arguments. It already knows that the first name on that class, because we stored it earlier when we first initiated the class or initialized the class. And so finally, if you do all of this, the results you'll get here on the bottom is that this person has paid their dues via PayPal, and they RSVP to a meetup, and then they introduce themselves at the meetup. So again, very simplified example, again, just to get you the idea of understanding inheritance. And feel free to ask any questions about that. Inheritance is just one of the OOP concepts that is used in programming. The other 3 are abstraction, polymorphism, and encapsulation. Please feel free to visit that link there, OOP concepts. I found it very helpful to explain these specifically in Python syntax. And the examples on the right are also from this website. So we talked about inheritance, but there's many different forms of inheritance in Python as opposed to other languages. So Python has single inheritance and also has multiple inheritance as well. And I've kind of just summarized it here for you. Maybe you can go back and just process that later when you get a chance. But there's multi-level inheritance pattern, which just basically means the grandparent class passes it down to its child now, and then it's going to pass to another child. So we have this family tree, right, from the grandparent to the parent, the child. And then we also have hierarchical inheritance. So that's just basically one parent passing it down to two siblings. And I promise this will make more sense if you look at the examples that are provided. This is just a very simple breakdown. And then if you have multiple inheritance, you're going to have, let's say, dad and mom, but then they both pass down to one class called child. So we have all these different patterns, but that's because Python does support these sorts of things. And yes, so the more we know, the more we can use in our code. All right, so I did the inheritance in API, which is the mnemonic you should use, but I'll leave you to go ape on ape. I know, that's a lame joke for the day. And so I'm just going to summarize the other ones for you, and then I'll let you dive into it with code. So we have polymorphism, which just basically means that we have methods under the same name. So maybe you have two methods that are called pay dues, for example. Maybe the account has to pay dues, but then also the member has to pay dues. And that's kind of where we're using this. There's two different types. There's one that is available at compile time, and it's called method overloading. And it's basically, if you have this is easier if you have an example in front of you, but when you have different objects, and it can have different functions with the same name, and then when you run that, it will run those functions for that specific object. Again, look at the example on the slide previously on that link. And then just a fun aside here, when I think of overloading, I think of maybe something like Dragon Ball Z. I don't know, don't ask me. Or maybe this cat who's like super cute. And then bonus points if you can figure what's going to happen here on this puppy with the hands and the heart. And I'm hoping one day Chico can do this. This is my personal challenge to Laura. And if you're ready, you can click on that link and you can see what happens. Basically cuteness overload. So I'll leave you to explore that if you'd like. The other one is called runtime polymorphism. And this involves something called method overriding. Another concept in OOP is encapsulation, which is basically us trying to lock in different variables so they're not accessible from the outside, only accessible within that function or that class, for example. And then interesting to note is that Python doesn't have a private keyword. So something that you can use in your class constructor is double underscore, or I've heard it being called dunder, standing for double underscore. And yeah, just something interesting I came across, so I wanted to include it here. And then lastly, abstraction. Abstraction is a class that you can't make child from directly and use it. It's just basically to inherit functionalities. So a quick example I can give is that with an abstract class, perhaps you want the child class to have a method called paid dues, but you don't want it to automatically be defined. You want it to be defined when the programmer makes that child class, right? So all we know is that when we make the new child class, it has to have pay dues, and that programmer has to define what paydues actually does. And that's the idea behind abstraction. It's just another way to guarantee that we have this consistency in our code. And I'm sure there's more advanced concepts, but I won't get into those here. And then finally, we have some resources. There's the official Python page. Of course, you should use that as your first resource. I've checked out a group here with Capital Factory, specifically the Austin Python meetup. And I think one of the topics that I've attended was more of a scientific or health related Python application or something. I wasn't able to stay for the whole thing, but they do seem to be very organized, and please check it out if you are interested. And then another link about what's being used in the Python ecosystem in 2020. And then some other resources just for this presentation. If you want to take a look back at my first presentation in November last year, it's going to be here, and then also the slides. I'll go ahead and update this with this new set of slides and also the YouTube link here once everything is finalized. And then that last link is, of course, the link to the GitHub repo. And here are some action steps for you. I tried to find ways for you to quickly get started for minimal, well, basically free in this case, and different courses that you can get eased into without feeling lost right away. And so some of the courses that I found that were free of charge, you can take the Google's course. You can also take their crash course, letter B, and then letter C and letter D are both courses from University of Michigan. I have not taken any of these classes, but they seem really great. And if I do have to revisit someday, I'm going to try those out. Second, set up your IDE. You'll need something to program in, of course. And then always set up a GitHub account because you want to version control your code. You can't remember everything, so you need the computer to do it for you. And then number 4, build some toys, play around with the language. I think that's the best way to master this sort of thing. Just working through it, bang your heads against the wall in order to get through it. And then number 5 is to take your time with the language, and then don't try to learn too many things too quickly, especially when you're first starting out. And then if you'd like to learn more about the ecosystem, it will help you gain a more wide breadth of knowledge after you've already dived a little bit deeper. I think this is called the T method or something of learning with programming. And then thank you so much for your time and listening to me present about Python. If you'd like to connect with Hispanic Hackers, the link is right here in the slide. And then if you'd like to connect with me professionally, I'm here on LinkedIn. Just shoot me over an invite if you like. And then I'd also have some personal kind of like spheres in my life. And the way I've kind of divided up is one is I'll talk about travel and code school. That's one brand that I have. I also have one that's about web development and portfolio works, that sort of thing. And then my new latest interest is, of course, cryptocurrency and DeFi, and then also general finance. That's my third brand. If you're interested in any of those, please feel free to connect with me and I'll send you those links. I didn't want to just include them here. And then as a parting thought, one thing that was recommended is to learn in public. So in the past, I did, I think, 2 or 3 sessions of 100 days of code. Basically on Twitter, I just typed in what I did for that day. And then my GitHub was like super green because I committed basically every day, even if it's the smallest thing. It just shows that I was thinking about it. And then share your knowledge freely, of course. We're all in this together. It's not a competition. We help each other and we all grow together. Always remain a student, right? You don't want to think that you're done at some point because there's always something new coming out, unfortunately, with this field. And I've never treated myself as a master of anything. Even with this Python, like I learned as if I was a newbie. And that really helps bring a fresh perspective to my learning process. And then the last thing I've heard that was very helpful is to journal more, something which I'm trying to do more of personally, and just to perhaps maybe let my nephew read it later because he's getting into web development as well. So always good to document your progress, to meditate on what you've learned, and to process that, which I think is very useful. And that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching this. And then we'll proceed to our next section. And please feel free to use the chat for any questions that you might have. Thank you so much, guys.
All right, guys. That was exciting, Tim. I learned a lot. I don't know about everybody else here. I know we had some really good comments and questions that everybody asked throughout throughout your talk. We got some good examples of places to get extra learning from. A lot of people sent that out. One of the folks that joined us tonight has a class or a tool that they created. It's further up in the chat. Please share, save the chat. You can find it. But they shared a link to something they are that they're taking advantage of. They're using as well. So please check it out also. Tim, did you have anything you'd like to add about the presentation or anything?
No, not particularly. I'm gonna fix up some of the things I saw that was missing or wasn't mentioned correctly, and then I'll update the GitHub and PowerPoint accordingly. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed that take. It was fun playing with the AV stuff, making the video.
Yeah. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again.
Hey, I looked at the article about the main stuff. It's still not pretty clear to me. So you can define it, but you don't have to define it. Is that what it's meaning or no?
Yeah, I think main is just a thing that you define the main, like the entry point for your program, right? As far as I know. But your question is about the indentation, which I don't think has, you just kind of write definition in main, right? I mean, I don't know too much. Haven't been writing Python as much.
Yeah, I was just curious. I've seen a lot of code, like in my work, there's a lot of legacy Python. I can read it, sign it, but sometimes they don't have a main. So I'm like, where the heck does it start?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it might be buried somewhere, or I haven't seen much legacy code for Python either, so I can't really have an opinion on it. But it's got to be in there somewhere. Something's kicking it off, right?
Yeah, I was just curious if you knew. I was like, yeah, a lot of the stuff has been transferred from like VX to C++. So most of the stuff I do is C++, and then we're trying to go to C#, but slowly getting there.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for your question, man.
Did anybody else have questions, guys and ladies? All right. Well, then I'm going to hop into, we have 3 sample questions that we can do. And what we can do, so there's 12 of us here. We can break up into 2 groups and pick one for each group. Maybe 10 to 15 minutes of time set aside, and let's see if we can solve one of these problems. Once I start the breakout rooms though, we'll not be sharing, we'll not be recording anymore. So just so you know that'll be what's going on. So there's 3 questions. Tim, do you want to go over them real quick?
Yeah, I wrote it in a way that you can kind of just play around with it. I actually don't have solutions for this, so you guys can come up with whatever you can think of using the code. And if it runs and it compiles, it works. That's kind of the goal of it, just to practice around with the syntax and play around with it. I did include the playground up there in case you didn't have one in mind. I just kind of found it off Google, and that's one of the 3 that I found was best. So yeah, I just welcome people to play around with the code, with 3 challenges. Main point is just we have some time. We're here. You just picked up some new syntax, Python syntax. So kind of like, help it sink in,
Absolutely. All right. So this is the first one. All right. So challenge 1, multi-level inheritance. For method, you can just print out text. Make a base class called Rick. 3 members, including string, numbers, and booleans. 2 methods: user portal gun, and become pickle Rick. Make child class called Jerry. Inherit all members and methods from Rick class. Add method pity self. Make child class called Morty. It inherits all from Rick and Jerry classes. Add method go on adventure. Have Morty invoke user portal gun and go on adventure. Have Jerry invoke pity self and become pickle. So that's one. I wish there was a way to share all of these at the same time. Let me see. The next one is so encapsulation. You're going to make a wallet class. You're going to add public number property to create a date. Add a public number property access date. Have a private string property private key and initialize with rose, oak, band, leaf, sky. Make a getter function to get the created date. Make a setter function to set the access date. Make a getter function to check if submitted string matches the private key member and returns a boolean. Did you try private features? Dunder. All right. And the last question is about abstraction. Make an electric vehicle abstract class with a show capacity method. Add 3 different derived classes from electric vehicle. Have each derived class return their snow capacity or their show capacity method and print out the capacity of their battery. Add members and other methods as you wish, as long as each derived class has the show capacity method. Need some values? Find EV battery capacities at, and there's a link right here. So, see, Tim, do you happen to have these? I guess I do. I can grab them real quick. I'll stop sharing my screen and I can take a screenshot and share them with everybody, I think, right? I think is that the best way to do it?
I think I gave people the link to the PowerPoint, so that's one approach. The other one is I could probably just copy paste also on the chat if that's helpful, because folks just probably need the text more than anything, right? And the links.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Perfect.
let me grab that while you chat some more.
All right. Sounds good. So right now we have 10 people here tonight still. We're going to go ahead and break off into 2 groups then. It's 8:26 right now, so about 8:45 we'll reconvene again in the main area, and we can talk about how we did. If everybody's still interested in hanging out, well, that's the game plan, and then we'll see if we're able to solve these problems or not. So let me stop sharing, or let me stop recording first. Just stop sharing. Stop recording. Okay.